Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshair, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender, originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshair.
So I'm really excited to be here for another week of Reshair Radio. I will mention that I work for Movement Mortgage. I'm a licensed loan officer. Yes, I am looking for people that may need a mortgage. But what's most important is you need to know that I am licensed. I have a license number 117266 and Movement Mortgage and equal housing lender. Got to get my compliance stuff out of the way. But nonetheless, what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce our guest and expert contributor today. First up, we have Sandi Salisbury from Allen Tate Company. Sandi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you asking me to be here today.
Absolutely. So, Sandi, you've got 18 years as a realtor. 18 years, that's
18
great.
18 years, I know. It seems like yesterday I started, but here I am, 18 years later.
Licensed in North and South Carolina, so you cover the Carolina states.
I do.
And which you probably are too humble to mention, but I do know that you have many, many awards. Among them are the Allen Tate Legends Award winner and Master Circle. So those are pretty awesome.
Right. Thank you.
And I think that really just shows our listeners that you really know what you're doing. You know how to do a lot of business, and you do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I try to.
You do, absolutely. So, and before we kind of get further into you, I also want to mention that we have our expert contributor here, Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas. Preston, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me
back.
back. And I want to second everything. I've known Sandi a long time, and even the accolades you just gave her doesn't do it justice. She's a great realtor.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to make sure that our listeners know that if you happen to peep in and have a comment, that they know you're actually here in the studio with us. Who's that other person in the background? So, but I want to make sure we take a few more minutes here and make sure our listeners understand Sandi and her background and so forth. So obviously a realtor, 18 years, etc., working with the Allen Tate Company. Tell us how you got started in the business. There's nobody ever really gets out of high school and says, I can't wait to be a realtor.
Well, actually, I may have been that rare one because I really did. My parents early on when I was growing up in Charleston, South Carolina, they bought and flipped houses.
Oh, that's cool.
And it really wasn't flipping it for a profit. It was flipping to get a bigger house. My parents would fix it up, and I think we lived in no less than 5 or 6 houses growing up.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
My husband and I started doing that, and after a career as a stay-home mom, I figured this is a great way for me to make a living, do what I love to do, and make some money.
Right.
And I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. I have absolutely nothing to lose. And I came out of a healthcare career where I enjoyed helping people. This was a little different. Pays a little better than that, but more than that, I mean the gratitude you get from a buyer that is buying their first home, or even someone that's buying their 10th home. You just can't measure that. So a great way to make a living, but also there are a lot of perks along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I started with CMS schools, so it
know,
wasn't hard to go up from the income
Me too.
standpoint from there. The baseline was
No way to
low.
go it up, that's right.
Right. So, but love my time there working as a counselor in the district and serving.
See, you've just taken that into mortgage lending.
That's
You're
right.
still a counselor.
I am a counselor, that's for sure.
Chris,
There's a lot of stress.
I want to add. Now I understand when her and her husband started out flipping houses. Our talk out there, she was like, that flip or flop, man, there are a lot of things they leave out. There are.
All the late nights at the house, painting or putting in tile that you have to do yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I like the fact that they don't ever go, well, let's take a look at the home inspection report. This should have been on the home inspection report instead of going, we have to rewire the whole house. What?
Exactly. We need to make that hard phone call.
That's right.
Well, you should have found that out before you need to make that hard phone call.
Or sometimes it was on the report.
That's
exactly right.
Read it.
There always has to be drama on that show. But anyway, we're at Reshair Radio. We're not going to talk too much about them because we won't get through what we have to talk about. But Sandi, let's ask you one quick question here before we move on to Preston here. So tell our listeners what you like most about being a realtor.
Again, I really like meeting with people for the first time, getting to know them. I've always liked people. I love a job where I put people in my car and drive around a beautiful city like Charlotte, the South Charlotte area, where really I am concentrated with majority of my business. The end part of Mecklenburg County, actually uptown to horse country, is,
That's
you know,
right.
I work from uptown area all the way straight down south.
That's your website, right?
That is my website, uptowntohorsecountry.com. It kind of describes, you know, what I do, but I love getting in the car. I feel like sometimes a tour guide.
We're walking.
You know, but showing people the inventory, which is really my store, or, you know, the Charlotte Real Estate Market store of homes, and, you know, finding that thing that just, you know, speaks to them. You know, buying a home is an emotional process, but it's also a big financial, you know.
Well, it's interesting. And it's interesting
Yeah.
you say it's Charlotte's, I mean, the real estate market is your store. That's kind of cool. It's a great approach.
Yeah, well, you know, and it is. I mean, so, you know, inventory in the store, all those houses, all those sellers out there with homes available and just looking for the right buyer. So I love working with buyers and sellers, but, you know, as a buyer's agent, just love, you know, getting to know people, putting their family in my car, and showing them houses, looking for that special place.
Cool. Well, you do a great job and have an awesome reputation in Charlotte, which is
Thank
why
you,
we have
Chris.
you here as a guest today. So, all right, Preston, let's come back to you. You are the owner and operator of Home Inspection Carolinas. Tell us how many home inspectors you have working for you today?
We have 18.
18 home inspectors.
Yeah.
So you're like all over Charlotte, and even expanded around the state.
Yeah, we cover probably like a 50-mile radius circle, and then we're into Raleigh and Asheville. Different inspectors there, not the same guys.
Not the same guys. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. So you're the owner and operator of Home Inspection Carolinas. Obviously, you provide home inspections, but how would you describe your business to our listeners?
I think it's you know, providing peace of mind, and you know, relating back to what Sandy said. You know, she really likes helping people. I mean, I realize, you know, most people, the biggest investment of their life is their house, and their, you know, it's still the American dream, and I love to be a small part of that. And you know, I want them to buy that house, but I also want them to know, you know, you might have this coming down the road. You know, I don't want them to have some unforeseen bump in the road. And I too was a former CMS. I was a teacher, and ironically enough,
That's right.
I've helped a few of my students in their journey to buy a house, and that's awesome. Most of them are all in their late 20s, early 30s now, but that's awesome.
I did
to do
not
that.
know that about you, Preston.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time. I did know you were a teacher.
My wife and I both were teachers. Yeah.
I've helped a few myself. It's been fun to see them come back and they're like, wait a second, are you Mr. Reshair? My counselor? I'm like, yeah, that was me back in the day. It's been kind of cool. So I actually got a referral just this week from one of my past students.
Yeah, when
Just said, "I'm
somebody
buying a house."
when somebody comes up to me and I know that about the age window, and they're like, "Are you Mr. Sandlin?" I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's cool. That's cool. Really
That's
cool.
okay. I'm Kate and Bethany's mom.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing those children now in their 30s,
Yeah.
coming back to me. You know, they knew me through all that time, or someone is referred, or I helped their parents.
Right.
You know, so I'm Bethany and Kate's mom.
That's cool.
So
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Reshair Radio, and we've got in the studio here Sandy Salisbury from the Allen Tate Company and Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas. And what we're really getting ready to do is kind of roll out our theme for the day, and we're going to be talking about how to prepare to buy your first home. I bring the first-time buyer topic to Reshair Radio pretty consistently because I feel like those are our listeners that really want knowledge, that don't have access to it, haven't been through the experience before. And really, it's just like when you get married or you have a baby, everybody gives you advice all around you, but it's not
Absolutely.
always the
The peanut
correct.
gallery.
Right, the peanut gallery. It's not always the correct advice.
or
So
the water cooler.
the water cooler, right? So we're really just talking about how to prepare to buy your first home, and Sandy and I agree that the first thing that's important for a first-time buyer is choosing a trusted realtor. And Sandy, I want you to kind of talk about some of the things that we discussed in advance of the
Okay.
show. And why is it important for them to, first of all, even work with a realtor?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I think that the first thing that I want to touch on is how realtors work.
Sure.
You know, I work with buyers. I work as an exclusive buyer's agent. You know, you don't have to go online and request appointments with different agents. You know, I constantly get leads through Realtor.com. And, you know, they're meeting 4, 5, 6 agents. You know, I really work as an exclusive buyer's agent. And the best thing about that, I think the very best thing about that is it costs you absolutely nothing.
That's
I mean,
right.
you know, I become your mom, your best friend, your realtor. It costs you your psychologist. Absolutely nothing. But at that point, you know, I have everything associated with buying a house. You know, I have everything in regards to your best interest.
Right,
It costs you
representing
absolutely
them.
nothing.
And
It costs you absolutely nothing.
there's a
The seller pays for
misconception
that.
around that, because a
Absolutely.
lot of buyers think, well, who pays the realtor commission? Do I pay for that commission? And as the buyer, the selling side of the transaction pays the commission for both
Absolutely.
realtors
Right.
in the transaction. So first-time buyers don't even know that. So that's really important. So obviously you're there to represent them.
I am, and I
it's
take on all
great.
that responsibility of representing their money, their needs, all of that stuff as an exclusive buyer's agent. So I think that's really the most important thing. That way you start that relationship with your agent, outline what you're looking for, and then let them, put an outline for getting started.
Right, absolutely. And part of that is going back to market knowledge. I know that people will
Exactly.
they'll go out to Zillow or they'll drive up to a community and see a sign in the yard. But do you know if that house is priced properly? If you happen to call the listing agent, they're already representing the selling side.
That's
The
exactly
selling.
right. And
So-
as a seller's agent, exactly. I mean, you love to get that phone call, but you're actually working for your seller.
Right,
You are to show that house to him. You really need a buyer's agent.
absolutely.
Well, and the agent also have knowledge of what's coming, shopping centers,
Exactly.
light rail, things like that.
What's happening in the
that
community.
And
may
they have that
affect you.
responsibility to give you that information too, as an exclusive buyer's agent.
Right.
Once they're working for you, which costs you absolutely nothing, to give you that information and have all your best interest as their best interest. That's exactly right. And maybe a short meeting over coffee.
That's right.
Make sure,
Starbucks.
yeah, that's right. Make
It's a
sure you can be
Starbucks.
friends for, for the period of time it takes to find your house and get it closed.
Well, perfect. I know we got to take a quick break here. Again, you're listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host. We're having really a discussion around being prepared to buy your first home here with Sandi Salisbury from Alltake Company. We got Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back for the rest of our program.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshaar, with Movement Mortgage, licensed loan officer. And if you weren't listening to our first segment, we have a special guest here today in the studio, Sandi Salisbury from Alltake Realtors, and we've got Preston Sandi from Home Inspection Carolinas. And we're talking about right now how to be prepared to buy your first home. You mentioned choosing a trusted realtor is step number one if you're thinking about buying a home. The spring, the summer, whatever it is this year, make sure you choose a trusted realtor to do that. Let's go to number two, and Sandi, why don't you kick that off for us?
Okay, absolutely. I think step number two, you could say step number one. I love it when people come to me already pre-qualified for a loan, but if they're not, I can certainly get that process started with step number two. And of course, I've known Chris for a very long time. I worked with Chris when I was at Prudential Carolinas.
Yeah, that's been a while ago now.
He was our in-house lender. He helped my parents buy a house when they were moving down and moving closer to us.
Sweet.
They've done several loans for me personally, and he's worked with so many of my clients, and I trust Chris. Movement Mortgage, of course, is, in my opinion, rock star in the loan. They are. They can get things done, and no surprises down the road, which is really, really important. So I do trust Chris. So step 2 is getting qualified with a trusted loan officer. Again, that takes maybe 10 minutes online or over the phone. I can't stress enough that 10 minutes online. Today's buyer, this is what I see. They love the anonymity of the internet. But don't go looking for that online mortgage broker with those great rates. Try to avoid that pitfall.
From Iowa City.
That's exactly
or
right.
wherever.
That's exactly
You
right.
can't just pick up the phone and call that person.
I've had more train wrecks with that sort of lending scenario. So I always tell everybody, let me give you a name. You can be anonymous and make your loan application, but please give him a call and listen to what I say, because he's going to drive the bus along with me down the road to homeownership. And you're a passenger, so we need to keep you safe along the process and make sure you get where you're going. So loan off that, getting pre-qualified. And again, a pre-qualification, a pre-approval letter. Pre-qual is the first step.
That's correct.
Right, Chris?
Step 3, really, this is a good time to transition, because obviously I'm happy to help anybody that wants to get qualified. It's a 10-minute online application or 10-minute over the phone. But really, what's important today, if we haven't really segued into the marketplace here in Charlotte, but everybody that I'm talking to, if I'm talking to the buyers during the week, they're saying, we can't find homes. Or the minute we go and we find one, it's
Inventory is
gone.
low,
And realtors are saying, there's nothing for sale. I'm trying to help them to find a home.
Right.
But really, why that's important, we talk about this, is that really step 3 is getting pre-approved, and that's when the buyer takes the extra time and energy to actually submit their paperwork. That's tax returns and pay stubs, bank statements, photo IDs, etc.
Now, is there a step in between pre-qual and pre-approval, Chris?
Not really.
There's not really?
Nope.
Okay.
Not in my opinion. At least the way that it works at Movement Mortgage, we pre-qualify you, which is, she looks pretty cute from the other side of the dance floor, right?
Okay.
I got your income and information over the phone, but I don't know if what your paperwork is, what you give me, is going to match what you told me, right? So the pre-approval is, we're dancing.
It's the gold standard. It is really the gold standard. And as
Right.
a seller's agent, I'm going to take that offer and that negotiation and those phone calls from that buyer's agent so much more seriously if I have a pre-approval. So take that onto the buyer side. That's really what we want. So that is step 2.
Well, yeah, exactly. So as we roll into the
For me, it's step 1.
Yeah,
I'm already working with them.
Yeah, exactly. So just to sort of reiterate the differences, pre-qualification is that 10-minute phone call. You look good and we send an email out to everybody, the realtor and you involved. The pre-approval is submitting the documentation, doing the explanation letters, etc. And then at Movement Mortgage, we will submit that file to a live underwriter, who works here in our area, and they go through your documentation. So it's actually some underwriter scrubbing and approving and reviewing. And these days there can be surprises if you're on commission income, or if you're self-employed, or your credit history, or if you're from overseas. Sometimes overseas people, they can be a little trickier. So the goal is to get you through underwriting. Number 1, it's going to avoid surprises. And number 2, as we were kind of going back to the marketplace, it's going to allow somebody like Sandi to better negotiate if she's representing you on the buy side, saying, hey, you may have 2 other offers on the table that are pre-qualified, perhaps.
I have a pre-approval.
But this customer has been through underwriting, and we can close in 3 weeks. They're ready to go. And that little bit of difference from, with Movement Mortgage being behind the scene there, backing that up and going through underwriting.
That's why I love
sometimes it makes a difference.
It does.
In getting that offer.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
So
that's where you're going to get your best price. Better negotiations and best price.
Or when
you are
the
ready to go, you've done your homework, then you're golden in our market.
And what does it cost? It doesn't cost anything.
Nothing.
It's still free. So we don't make any money, believe it or not. Sandi and I make nothing until you actually close and buy the property.
Yeah.
So we are working for free up to that point, and we're happy to do it. It's part of the way we do business.
That's exactly right.
So I think we've hit number 3. Preston, did you have something you want to share?
Well, I was going to say, and don't forget, as a buyer, Sandi is working for you, but you're not actually having to pay Sandi. That's the great thing.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Preston. Yeah, the seller. That's the sweetest part about that. It's absolutely free. Really, the only thing that buyer agency calls you exclusive buyer agency will cost you is your loyalty to your agent. You can't start calling other agents. I mean, you have an agent
You've made an agreement.
You've made an agreement to work with them, and you know that goes both ways. You know, availability. If you call me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something's come on the market. It fits everything that you're looking for. You have that pre-approval letter. I'm going to move heaven and earth to meet you at that house. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, I can't show you till next Wednesday.
Right.
You know,
you can't do that.
so
right
that
now.
goes both
I mean,
ways. Loyalty and my availability. You know, within reason, I'm going to make myself available. We are now best friends.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I'm going to step out on a limb. Well, not really step out on a limb, but I'll just flat say you're crazy if you try to buy a house without an agent.
I
you need to have a good agent, a good lawyer, and a good plumber. Everybody needs to have one. That's just a life essential.
That's exactly right. It'll just make the process so much easier. I mean, you have so much information and experience right there. You know, and sometimes my opinions go unheeded, but I'll always have an opinion.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's right. I always have an opinion.
Sounds like it's a good time to transition to step 4.
Okay.
So anyway, let's step 4 is really understanding the difference between what your needs are when you go to buy a home and what your wants are. And this is really, I'm going to kind of push this back in your court, Sandy, because as a loan officer, you obviously have to determine the loan program you want, but the needs and wants really have to do with the house.
Absolutely.
So how do you walk a first-time buyer through that process of understanding what they really need versus what they want? Because in many cases today, the first-time buyer wants a lot more than they can really afford.
Well, and that's where, you know, getting started with a realtor and being pre-approved really comes in handy. Because first thing we're going to do is just sit down and talk about what do you need. I mean, you may have 3 children, you may need 4 bedrooms.
Sure.
I mean, that's a need. You may want a big fancy gourmet kitchen, but your budget may not quite allow for that. Maybe it allows for that, and then you could do the remodel, you know, after the kids go to bed. You know, that's where the needs versus wants come. So really understanding, I really want to know, you know, what your actual needs are, and as we get started within your price range or what you're, you know, willing to pay for a house or able to pay for a house, then we compare those wants. You know, this has a fancy kitchen, this doesn't. I want that house over this house, but as long as it meets your needs. And you know, everybody wants everything, and now with HGTV, it's all shiny, glossy.
Everything's perfect.
Everything's perfect. You know, that's not real life, but you know, there are some great houses out there, and you know, and houses in every budget, and with everybody's capability to do things. So they want something turnkey. Their budget needs to be a little bit higher. If they want something they can do some work on.
Spit and shine.
That's exactly right. Spit and shine, and great investment.
Sandy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when you're working with a husband and wife, or sometimes their wants and needs different, and do you sort of have to negotiate?
You know, not as much as on HGTV. I noticed where they're both on the total opposite sides, like House Center International. You think, how these people have been married for 20 years? They don't seem to need or want the same things. They are different, and you know, even if they, I will tell you, their needs and wants change as they go through the process, and some things they say they need and want don't actually come up until the process. So I don't know if I answered that question, but I don't really have a lot of people that are on opposite sides, but all of that stuff comes out as we start looking through houses, and it all gets resolved as we find the perfect house that meets their budget, meets their needs, and hopefully it has some of their, I call it the wish list.
Yeah, right.
You know, fancy kitchen, granite,
Outdoor living area, whatever it might be.
all that kind of stuff in the very best neighborhood in town.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe we can't get all of your wants, but which wants are the most important because
Exactly.
the budget constrains.
Well,
if you
I
will.
help them fill out actually I need to have, I'd like to have, and a wish I had, and they actually send it to me in an email.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was going to post
That
that
is
to
so
them over a
awesome.
weekend on a Friday, and I said, you know, just craft me an email. And of course, so when I get there, you know, I always print that out. I always.
What do you
put
call
it
that
in.
list?
It's the I want, I have to have, I'd like to have, and I wish I had.
All right. Well, this is a great time for me to segue into, if you're just tuning in and you're listening to our conversation and you have a need to find a realtor and you want to buy a home this year, this is a great time to connect with me via phone or text. You can give me a call at 704-277-4463. That's
277-4463. You can just text me and say, I need that list. I need
Yeah.
that list from Sandy.
There you go.
Because she will send you that list, but we got to get your information and send it out to you. And we can sort of start that process of helping you understand what it is you're really looking for when you go to buy a home. Because 2017 is a great year to buy a home.
Absolutely.
So, well, I think this is really a good time to probably take a quick break before we jump into our next component here, number 5 really is Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back for the rest of our program.
Sports fans know that the key to winning the big game is going in prepared. Right now, houses are selling fast. So if you're in the market for a new home purchase, don't just be prepared, be Movement Mortgage prepared. Charlotte's leading mortgage lender, Chris Reshair at Movement Mortgage will tee you up with a free, fully underwritten upfront pre-approval. Shop for the home of your dreams, already backed by an upfront pre-approval at Movement Mortgage. Call Chris today at 704-277-4463 or find Chris at www.themortgagegenius.com. Go into the game prepared with Chris Reshair of Movement Mortgage. Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. Your show host, Chris Reshair, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. If you haven't been listening, we've got Sandi Salisbury here from Elm Tate Realtors, and we are having an interesting discussion really around how to get prepared to buy your first home. Sandi, having fun yet, right?
I'm having lots of fun.
We've got Preston Sandlin here, a repeat offender.
Yes, it's old friends here.
Old friends here. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. So I'm just trying to keep everybody on topic here so we can actually get through the show and everything's done. But let's jump into number 5, which is understanding that there are upfront expenses when you go to buy a home. It surprises me as I work with first-time buyers when I say, well, when you go to contract on a home, you'll have to write an earnest money check, you'll have to write a due diligence check, you may pay for a home inspection up front. Sometimes that's at closing, right? It can be done both ways, right, Preston?
That's correct.
And then you're going to have to pay for the appraisal up front. Boy, that starts to add up. First-time buyer, that can be $1,000, $2,000, sometimes more, right? So, first of all, Sandi, tell us about earnest money and due diligence. Just briefly, what it is and why the buyer has to be prepared to pay up front.
Okay, after you've contracted on the home to buy, there are 2 components to that deposit, or that, this is telling the seller you seriously want to buy the house, and this is really your skin in the game in our market.
Yep.
So your down payment that everybody knew about, way back when, it was always an earnest money deposit. I earnestly want to purchase this home. It's now made up of 2 components. You have a right to inspect the home. This is a period that your realtor establishes, the seller agrees upon, and you're actually paying for that right. To take the house on the market and to look at it. And again, this is your skin in the game. So that's an expense should you decide not to buy the house. That
due diligence.
That due diligence money, it could be out the window. However, if you contracted on a home you loved, but the foundation was rotten, it's also your hold harmless money. You're allowed to walk away,
right.
Really for, I'm going to say for no reason. It's a nominal fee.
Right.
But should you purchase the home, it comes back to you. So this is really your deposit on the house. So your due diligence and your earnest money is made up of 2 components. One, a due diligence fee made directly to the seller. They actually deposit that check, and that's important to know because your lender is going to want to see
Thank you.
that check is cleared as he's preparing your final paperwork to close. And your earnest money deposit is held in escrow, typically with the buyer's firm. and it's held safely there and protected until you get to that point. I don't know if we have enough time to talk
Really,
about
really,
dates,
it's just
but
the way I see it is that the due diligence is a fee. You're
it's about,
you're paying that to the seller in order for them to take the house off the market
Right,
for
right.
you to do your
investigate it.
inspections.
Yeah.
Whether it's a home inspection, appraisal, the mortgage loan.
Right.
And then once that timeline is up, then the earnest money check
Comes
that
into
you write
play.
comes into play, and it's hard after a certain date, after the inspection window is up.
It really is. You lose your money after that, and usually by that time you've got your loan has already gone through underwriting, your inspections, your repairs have been negotiated, everything's looking good, and you're ready to close. So you go past that date and you're on towards closing, and that's an exciting time, but did you want to say something, Preston?
I say, I kind of compare it to layaway. You want this,
absolutely. That's a great
and
way
we're
to
going
look
to take
at
it
it.
off the shelf, so nobody else can
will
buy it.
Yeah.
Because you might say, well, why do I have to pay that money? Well, all right, you're going to run the risk of somebody else buying that between now and the time. It's
That is
unfair
a great
to
analogy.
ask the seller to save that for you without
Yes.
you showing some skin in the
Without it
game.
going to anyone else, right?
But that is an expense, but that expense comes back to you in your deposit to purchase
Right.
the home.
Right.
So it's not like you
It's not
just
money
throw it
that's
away.
gone. It's
That's
not a
right.
fee. Right.
That's right.
Right.
But a small amount of it is the fee you pay to terminate the contract should something come up during that process and you're not comfortable buying that house for whatever reason.
Makes sense.
Yep.
And the same applies for the home inspection, right, Preston? So if
Right.
that
Okay, so
now,
then that's our
now
next
we're-
expense. Our
Yeah,
next
our
big
next
expense.
expense is a home inspection, which typically ranges in the $400 range, sometimes a little bit more depending on the bells and whistles. Am I right?
Yeah, our average inspection fee is $450, depending on the square footage and whatnot.
So Chris hasn't done a home inspection recently. I was going to say $350 to $550.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on what you want.
450 is right there.
Yeah, that's what I see
Tell
as
us what
average.
that includes, because I always tell everybody with a basic home inspection that I would recommend something for somebody includes
All right. Well,
mechanical, structural,
mechanical structural. There's 3 mechanical systems:
Right.
the electrical, the plumbing, and electrical plumbing. I'm having a brain freeze here.
That's okay.
Well, let me go structure, electrical, plumbing, and why am I brain freezing?
Well, mechanical. I mean, the
HVAC.
HVAC. Okay. The mechanical
3
components.
systems.
That's what's saying of the house,
Right.
which are the expensive components of a house.
Right.
Should they not be working properly?
Correct. And it's not, is the house perfect? Because there's no house that's perfect.
There is no perfect house.
But is there any major expense they're going to hit, within
Especially
a
for
short
a first-time
time?
home buyer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the goal is just to have that inspection performed, and we're going to really talk more about a home inspection process in detail after we're done with this segment with
Okay.
Preston, but that fee can be an upfront cost in addition to the appraisal on the home, which is when the lender orders to make sure that the home is worth what you're paying. So if you're buying a $250,000 house, we're going to send a guy out there through a third-party management company. We don't even know who's going to go out there. It could be a woman too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
but regardless, we're going to order it. It gets performed. They go in the house, take pictures, they measure the home, compare it to other homes in the area that have sold to ensure that you're not paying too much for that house. So
Exactly.
that is typically going to be $475. It can be a little bit more if you're doing FHA or investment properties, but minimum it's going to be $400 to $500 range for
And
that.
these are expenses that
And you
occur
pay that
upfront
up
after
front.
you contract
And
in
then-
that period. You
that's
need to
right.
get those things going and make sure that everything's in line.
Right, so be prepared for upfront expenses. That was number 5 on our how to be prepared as a first-time buyer. Let's go to number 6.
This is my favorite.
Don't get yourself in a pickle. And we have several things to talk about there. So Sandy knows this. Preston doesn't see this, but when we pre-qualify somebody, at least I do it.
We get the pickle form.
We get the
buyer gets
pickle
the
letter,
pickle
pickle
form.
form, and it's pretty much a 2-page list with a jar of pickles, a green jar of pickles that says, "Don't do all of these things." And that's a whole show on its own, right?
It absolutely is.
But we're going to just hit some of the top ones that I see as a problem. One of them is borrowing money. Okay, we have people.
Don't buy any furniture for your new house.
Yeah, I had somebody.
Don't take out a credit line for furniture for your new house.
We had that recently. Car
new
loans. Had
Got
car
stickers
loans.
on the side of the window, and you're like, "Did you just buy that? Are you serious?"
So even honestly, people don't understand. Even a credit card advance can cause a major problem because underwriting guidelines don't allow you to borrow money from a credit card so that you can turn around and borrow money from a mortgage lender. It's called
Right.
borrowing to borrow.
Right.
It's, it's not your skin in the game, right? It's
Right.
not your money. It's not your investment. So you have to be very careful about that. You can check with me or the local lender you're working with, but don't get yourself in pickle in that area.
And of course, your lender will remind you of
That's
that.
right.
The favorite one that I have also, Chris, and I know we're going to mention
Yeah,
this,
go ahead.
is selling things of large monetary values and putting that into your bank.
Yes.
At some point, I actually had a client that, for some reason, decided he was going to sell two they were muscle cars.
Muscle cars.
They were old muscle cars. I think they were about $25,000 a piece.
Wow.
And 2 weeks before closing, he deposited that into his bank account. Well, when we got ready to go through underwriting, that came to our attention. So don't
Yes.
sell anything of big
Yes.
value and then deposit it.
Yes, well, it
He
can
wanted
be
it for his down
done.
payment. He never mentioned it to anybody, but
Right.
he knew he had that in his garage, but he just didn't think about it.
And to all the listeners out there, the reason is because the bank or the underwriters are going to look at this like you temporarily are inflating the potential, inflating your account to qualify, and then that money's not really your money.
Exactly.
That's why it sends off
Is
red
it your
flags.
money, right? We don't always know it is your money. So what's important there really is it's not a good idea to do this. It can be done, but like when someone
Right.
says I want to sell,
Do it on the advice of your loan officer.
Yes, I can't tell you there would be gravestones for every guy that sold a Harley to get his girl
yeah.
or wife a house. I don't have enough fingers and toes, and every time I hear them like, don't tell me Harley, and they go, yeah, how did you know? I'm like, well, because this is like the
It's the first thing that goes when you get married the first time, I guess.
Just be prepared, guys. If you're single and you have a Harley, you're going to have to give it up at some point for a down payment. But
Do it before.
yes,
Do it
you do
before.
it before, or talk to me because I have to show proof of ownership. I have to show bill of sale. I have to show Kelly Blue Book value, and I have to show proof of the transfer of those funds. It can all be done, but it's a lot of headache to go through if you're waiting to do it a week before you're signing on the dotted line. So.
Just walk the straight and narrow.
That's
what
right.
I tell my
That's
folks. Just
right.
walk. Don't do anything crazy unless you run it by me or run it by Chris,
There you
and
go.
and get our blessing.
All right, let's roll to number 7. Don't be
Okay.
afraid to have your credit looked at. I'm going to
Absolutely.
kind of jump in here. The people that have excellent credit are the people that say, don't look at my credit. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're going to have your credit looked at in the process. This is the biggest investment most of the time that you're going to make in your life. That's not when you want to say, don't look at my credit, try to get me qualified. And I have people ask me that all the time. I want you to pre-qualify me, but don't look at my credit. That's impossible, folks.
I have a question for you, Chris,
Sure.
on that. These sites like Experian.com, and actually I do this where I watch my credit now and I
Sure.
manage my credit. There's no problem with that. I mean, people watching what their credit, how their credit score,
Those
and how
monitoring
their makeup.
services, what I like is that
Nothing.
it gives them a trend line, right? It helps them to know kind of generally where's the score and if things are moving up or down.
Okay.
If something happens and the number drops, they know to invest.
And maybe for a first-time homebuyer that really doesn't know what their credit is, or they're new, or they're young, or they're first time in this country, maybe get started with that so they actually know that they have a
Sure.
good credit
They-
score.
they
Because what
can
is the
do that.
minimum credit score?
Well, that's a great
right
question.
now?
So a minimum score on an FHA loan at Movement is a 580. Not
Okay.
not pretty
yeah.
low. Pretty
yeah,
low.
I was going to say.
But the cool
Performing and
thing.
conventional?
Well, conventional is going to be closer to 620 to 660, depending
Okay.
on the loan program. I can't
Okay.
really get too specific on air.
Okay.
But in general, it would fall in that range.
Okay.
But I think what's most important to point out is that with the credit monitoring services, et cetera, it gives you a trend line. But when you pull credit on Credit Karma, it's not the same kind of credit check
Okay,
that
that's
a mortgage
interesting.
lender pulls.
Okay.
So I always tell people, instead of going out online and saying, I'm going to check my credit first and then talk to the lender, well, you
Right.
might as well have the lender just check it for you
Okay.
because it's not the same kind of credit check.
Okay.
And then we get into these arguments that, wait a second, but Credit Karma told me my score was this, how come
900?
yours is this? And I'm like, because it's not the same thing.
Right.
You shop in the women's department for women's clothes and the kids department for kids' clothes, and you're going to two different departments and expecting the same result.
Okay.
So, really at the end of the day, it's not the same thing. So,
I have a question on that, Chris. Do excess? Why? When you mentioned that people don't want you to check their credit, and I remember way back, I was told that with a lot of checks or whatever, your
Yeah,
credit score goes down.
Increase.
Is there
That's
truth
a
to
good
that?
point.
How does
So,
that work?
The consumer has 14 days from the time that they have their credit checked by one lender to have it checked by any number of additional lenders with
Oh.
no impact to their credit score.
Okay.
So ironically, I have them call and say, well, I just had my credit checked at my big bank. I wasn't really exactly, I'm not sure if I want to go with them.
but I don't want you to look at my credit. And I said, well, now is the time you want me to look at the credit because you just
Right.
had it checked.
Okay.
If you decide to
Okay.
choose
Okay.
me, you decide to choose working with me 3 weeks later, then it's going to affect your score. So
Okay.
I have to have that conversation a lot of times. But
Okay.
anyway, we are out of time for this particular segment. We've got a few more bullets to hit when we get back. So please stay tuned. You're listening to Reshair Radio. We'll be right back.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
Welcome to Reshair Radio. We are back to finish out our last segment here. And if you're just sort of tuning in for the first time, we've been talking about how to be prepared as a first-time buyer. We've been hitting, we're on item number 8 already. We've hit all kinds of items in terms of things that you need to think about. So if you're a first-time buyer, please stay tuned. We've got lots of stuff here to cover. But we're on number 8 on the list here. Preston, Sandlin, why don't you jump in here? Home inspections, can you handle it? So tell us, when a first-time buyer is buying their first home, they get a home inspection to determine whether or not the house is in good functioning order. But a lot of times they get that report and there's sort of a freak out moment. And Sandy, you can jump into because you're the one dealing with the buyers and the home inspection report too. So how do you guys deal with the home inspection process, particularly with a first-time buyer?
Well, first of all, I know there's a common perception that the length of the report equals the house is bad. That's not necessarily true because the state requires home inspectors to put in a lot of verbiage, and it's increased over the years. And that verbiage alone,
everything else.
Loan disclosure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
just that verbiage that's required by the state is 20 to 30 pages without anything else, depending on the size of your font. The other thing is we like to put a lot of pictures in just because, but see, this lengthens the length of the report, but it's just easier for anybody who repairs it. And then what we found out is we put it in the report, but then a lot of realtors wanted it in the summary because the summary is a lot of times, I know that's a whole different argument, but a lot of times the summary is used as the repair request.
The summary is a laundry list of things that may or may not be negotiated that probably need to have some attention, either from the seller or from the buyer.
Yeah, but you can see, like, we put the picture of,
You don't put the pictures in the summary.
some request it though.
That's a
because-
conversation for another
I
day.
know.
Well, and I'll explain.
Okay.
I'll explain why. I mean, like, let's say there's 2 windows here. The left one's fogged, and that's been on the report before. And it goes into the summary, and the person, this has literally happened. They actually repaired the wrong window. The window guy, and I'm like, there's 2 windows in the room. You couldn't tell which one. They said, now, do you mean the left window when you walk into the room or from the front of the house? And it does say in the report, everything's from the front elevation. So it's really the left window from the front of the house. It's the right
And the
window.
one that's got all the fog on it.
Yeah, and I know that's a rare
That
case.
wouldn't be obvious.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can't tell, but when the window company should be able to.
That's what they're big.
Yeah,
They wanted us
you
to
can't
pay.
always tell.
They wanted us to pay for the window. They fixed the window that didn't need fixed. It's a long story.
Well, as a teacher, that's why you tell everybody to read the inspection reports,
I
like reading
know.
the questions on the test, right?
Yeah, and it says at the beginning of the report, but I
Read
don't
this
know.
entire report.
Maybe the guy fixing it didn't get the thing that said it's from the front of the house. But I guess my whole point with this is, with all that verbiage and the pictures, that lengthens the length of the report. And so don't be freaked out.
Yeah,
Don't be freaked out.
Exactly.
Go through the report, and then what you need to do, much like Sandy, I love her wish thing. Yeah, divide it out. Tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. Like, what's most important
Have
to
to
you?
fix.
Yes,
Have to fix, or
right
need to
that they
fix is.
and would be great if they fix
There
this.
you
Yeah,
go.
and-
we just created a new list.
And let me say this
Exactly. I
right.
never thought about that.
I want to say this right now
I'm going to
to
use that, Chris.
anybody listening out there. Nothing has to be fixed. There is no law that says this has to be
It
fixed.
is all
It
negotiated
is
between
all
the buyer and the seller.
negotiable. And then there's a whole lot else that feeds into it. Sometimes if the buyer or the seller put the house on the market and they had 12 offers in the first thing, and then you know what's in their mind already. I'll let it go for too low, and then they're going to come in and ask me for a bunch of stuff. I'm not fixing anything. I could sell it for
exactly right.
you know, versus
the psychology we were talking about earlier.
versus the seller that it's been on the market, which doesn't happen much anymore, but years ago it's been on the market 12 months and they haven't had a bite. This is the first part. They're going to be much more
They're
willing
going to remodel the house for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But my point is, in realistic terms, what's important to you? What's what you, like you said, what we need to fix, like to fix, whatever. And I'm just going to flat out say it. It's a little unrealistic to go into it and I want every little rubbing door, sticking window, and it's also unrealistic to ask your realtor. I mean, it's not unrealistic to have a negotiation with them, but what's important to the realtor, if they were buying the house, may be different than what if the buyer, because if the buyer has small children, that banister is going to be huge. But Sandy's children are older now. The banister's not as
to me. My husband can probably fix it.
Right. So, I mean, I guess my thing is read the report. Please
You need to read the report, and that's something Preston and I were talking about before the show. I do ask my clients, as soon as they get it, we're not going to immediately start, going through the list. I don't have enough time in my day, honestly, to go through the entire report, but the home buyer should, with their partner, whoever they're buying the house with, sit down and read it in detail, go over it, and have a list in their mind or concerns, whatever. We can talk to Preston, discuss it with me, and then develop a list of things that we absolutely have to get fixed.
Right.
Things we would like to be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say, it's like a
I
buffet.
hope that we get the have to be fixed, that they replace the HVAC.
Yeah, there's no guarantee.
Because it's not working.
Go for the high dollar and safety items.
Exactly.
It's like a buffet.
That's a high dollar safety.
Don't fill
the
up
lobster and the steak.
Go for the lobster and the steak. Don't fill up on the potatoes because they're not that expensive.
That just muddies the water.
Right,
Just have an honest, open conversation with the seller. You might be surprised at what they're going to do. And you won't be surprised by what they're not going to do.
And that seller, I've seen them. They'll get mad over that, the switch plate cover that you want them to replace when they have no problem replacing the band seal or the roof. Get the band seal on the roof, and you know what? Don't worry about that. You can fix that for $1.
Exactly.
Don't make them mad over $1.
Read the report and come up with a reasonable list that I'm going to present to the selling agent. On your behalf with possibly even reasons as to why it's important to you, and hope that we get that stuff negotiated out.
There you go.
On your behalf and fixed.
All right, let's roll to number 9 and 10. We got to make sure we get everything done on the list here before we run out of time.
This is a big one, though.
Well, we can move through pretty quick.
Okay.
Appraisal. So the lender's going to order the appraisal in this process. The first-time buyer needs to know that's designed to help you determine whether or not the house is worth what you're paying. But the house doesn't always come in at the value or what you've agreed to pay, particularly
on the market.
Particularly in our market right now, where people are bidding up just to get the homes in many cases.
Yeah. So be prepared for that.
Right, you have to be prepared, but it doesn't mean it's time to cancel the contract if it doesn't appraise. And I've had first-time buyers go, "Oh my gosh, now what? It appraised $5,000 below what I'm willing to pay." And so there are common resolutions. Typically, the buyer can first try to go back to the seller and see if they're willing to come down on the price. That's a big win for the buyer.
And that happens.
And
I'd say 50% of the time, or probably 75% of the time, that's what we do.
Yep. If that doesn't work, you can agree to pay, or maybe you meet in the middle. Maybe you come up $2,500, the seller drops $2,500, so you're bringing a little extra out of your pocket.
Renegotiate the price of the contract.
Right. Sometimes we go back and we dispute the appraisal because maybe a comparable sale got left off, and it really is worth that, but the appraiser may have missed that. And we can sometimes adjust the value. And I had one recently. We got the value from 130 to 138. It came in 8,000 low, and then I went back and disputed it, and we got it right back to the 138.
That's where the relationship between your lender, really your mortgage broker, and your realtor, if they have a relationship, and we work together. I mean, we can review it, we can talk about it, and come up with a plan to get past that hurdle, as opposed to somebody that's out in
trying to do
Timbuktu nowhere. You don't know where they are. Sitting behind the anonymity of the screen. They really don't care.
Right.
I hate to say it, they don't care.
Internet over the phone lender.
Yes, exactly. They're just saying you take it or leave it. So it doesn't happen very often. currently right now, we're not seeing this as much because inventory's opened up a little bit, but it does happen.
Absolutely.
So that's one.
Well,
We
yeah,
have to resolve it.
Well, Chris knows the area, knows the property. That person on the
He
internet
reads
has no
appraisals every
idea.
day too, and then
In
I
this
know
area,
the adjustments that they might be making. So.
Yeah, we do a lot of communicating at that point because we have
Yeah.
to figure out, do we think we're going to be able to get more value out of it? And sometimes we know we're
Yeah.
paying a lot more, and it probably isn't going to appraise, and we've already sort of forewarned the buyer.
Well, and that's where your agent
know.
comes in, because that is something that I should be looking at and have a red flag in my mind that we might have an appraisal problem
Yep.
going
And we
into
order
it,
that
and just
right
go,
away.
oh yeah, let's go ahead and agree to that price. That's where my opinion comes in. I will tell you if I don't think it's going to appraise,
Sandy will
and I
tell
may
you
be
her
wrong.
opinion.
I know I may be wrong. Usually I'm not on that, but if I foresee a problem or a bump in the road, and hopefully it's a bump we can avoid by paying a fair price for a house and it appraises.
That's right.
So there you go.
That's a
Experience
protection
comes in.
built in for you. That home value code of conduct, is that what that is?
That's right.
Chris?
Home value code of contact.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So the last piece of the puzzle here, and you kind of hit on it, Sandy, is that really it's a team effort. My
is.
advice is to try to have as much patience as possible. Even in the loan process, we get your contract when you go under contract, and we submit your contract to the underwriting department, and we order your loan package to be sent to you. And it's like 40 to 50 pages of legal mortgage forms that you have to fill out. And sometimes people have a freak out moment over that. What is this? What is that? I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. And you have to be patient through the process. You have to lean on your mortgage professional, your realtor, and anyone else involved in the process, and let us walk you through. The first-time buyer, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be swing of emotions throughout this process, but it doesn't mean that you can't get through it. And if you know to have that patience, work with the team, let everyone know what's going on. If you're struggling with something, we need to know it.
Yeah,
I always tell that to
absolutely.
my first-time buyer. If you don't speak up, I don't know if you're concerned about an issue. I will help you if there is one. So, sometimes you're going to be told things you don't necessarily want to hear, right? But nonetheless, we're trying to make sure that you successfully buy that home as a first-time buyer. So, gosh, we're really about out of time for our show here today. What I want to do is, as we wrap up the show, Sandy, I know that you have agreed to any of our Reshair Radio listeners today to offer a free home warranty for any listeners.
I have.
So,
I'm lucky enough to be affiliated with the Allen Tate Company, Allen Tate Realtors, and we actually have the company administers a home buyer's 2-10 warranty. It's a great warranty, comprehensive, can help you with any unforeseen. The day after closing, the disposal breaks or the air conditioning. I mean, it's just one of those things. A garage door. It handles a myriad of items that will break down over the homeowner.
it just gives them that extra security.
Exactly, and it's about a $550 value, but I would be happy to provide one at closing for anybody that, I guess, what are they going to do?
Works
Call
with
into
you?
the
Yeah, you can call
into
me.
the show, mention the show.
And maybe I should give them my number right now. So
Yes,
that number
that's
is
a great idea.
704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. So again, text me, call me, say I need Sandy or I need Preston for a home inspection. You can work with me on the loan side, whatever it might be, but we're here to help you. I do want to give a sincere thank you for the two of you being in the studio today.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Preston,
you,
as
Chris.
always, as a contributor to our show on a regular basis, you're just awesome. You're the best. So again, thanks for listening to Reshair Radio. We'll be back next week at 10 o'clock. So we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Signing off from Reshair Radio. Have a good one.
All right.
See you guys.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Hey, Chris Reshaar here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266.
Sports fans know that the key to winning the big game is going in prepared. Right now, houses are selling fast. So if you're in the market for a new home purchase, don't just be prepared, be Movement Mortgage prepared. Charlotte's leading mortgage lender, Chris Reshaar at Movement Mortgage, will tee you up with a free, fully underwritten, upfront pre-approval. Shop for the home of your dreams, already backed by an upfront pre-approval at Movement Mortgage. Call Chris today at 704-277-4463 or find Chris at www.themortgagegenius.com. Go into the game prepared with Chris Reshaar of Movement Mortgage. You've been listening to Reshair with Chris Reshaar, a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender. Originator license number 117266. Learn more online at themortgagegenius.com. Sports fans know that the key to winning the big game is going in prepared. Right now, houses are selling fast. So if you're in the market for a new home purchase, don't just be prepared, be Movement Mortgage prepared. Charlotte's leading mortgage lender, Chris Reshaar at Movement Mortgage, will tee you up with a free, fully underwritten, upfront pre-approval. Call Chris today at 704-277-4463. Go into the game prepared with Chris Reshaar of Movement Mortgage.